Okay, so I want to talk about this idea of good immigrants versus bad immigrants because some people talk about it like it's common sense, like it's obvious or that it's always existed. But that framing didn't come from reality, it came from power. The US has always divided immigrants into categories, right? Not based on lawfulness or contribution, but on usefulness and threat. Who's needed, who's tolerated, and who's blamed when things get uncomfortable, you know? So let's go back to the late 1800s, early 1900s. European immigrants were flooding into the country: Irish, Italian, Jewish, Eastern Europeans. And at that time, they were not considered good immigrants. They were called dirty, criminal, uncivilized, a danger to American values. Sound familiar? The difference is this: over time, many of those groups were absorbed into whiteness. Their bad immigrant status disappeared once they became politically useful, economically integrated, and no longer threatening to the social order. Good immigrant status isn't earned, it's granted. Now, look at who gets labeled good today. People say they came legally, they work hard, they keep their heads down, they don't cause trouble. Notice what's being praised, right? Compliance, silence, and gratitude. The good immigrant is somebody who doesn't demand too much and definitely doesn't challenge power. And the bad immigrant, that label shows up the moment somebody protests, organizes, demands rights, exists visibly, or becomes politically inconvenient. It's not about crime, it's about disruption. This is why the same group can be praised in one decade and vilified in the next. Mexican laborers were essential when farms needed workers, and invaders when wages stagnated. Asian immigrants were welcomed as workers, then excluded entirely once they were seen as competition. Refugees are brave when they fit a narrative, and burdens when the sympathy wears off. The categories shift, but the structure stays the same. Good immigrants help the economy without asking for power. Bad immigrants remind this country of its contradictions. And here's the part that people don't like to say out loud: this framework isn't really about immigrants, is it? It's about reassurance. It lets the country say we're not anti immigrant, just anti those immigrants, you know? It turns exclusion into something that sounds reasonable, even moral. The good versus bad divide also does something else. It pressures immigrants to police each other, to distance themselves to prove that they're different, to say, I'm not like them. That keeps solidarity fractured and control intact. And historically, that's always been the point. From the Chinese Exclusion Act, to national origin quotas, to modern enforcement, the US has never asked who belongs. It's always asked, who can we tolerate right now? That's why no immigrant status really ever feels secure, because good is conditional. It lasts until fear shifts, until politics change, until someone needs a scapegoat. So there are no good and bad immigrants. That line is movable. The approval is temporary, and the judgment has never been evenly applied. This isn't about behavior. It's about power deciding who gets grace and who gets blamed. And once you see that, a lot of this immigrant rhetoric really stops being confusing and it starts sounding very, very familiar.